What if the person you trusted most was the one who plunged the knife into your back? What if the tears you cried were for a lie, and the silence of the grave held a secret too terrible to bury? Today, we unearth the chilling truth behind a family's facade, a legacy of betrayal and the cost of buried secrets. The rain wasn't just falling, it was weeping. Each drop, a tear for a life abruptly ended, a future stolen. Emily stood, a solitary figure draped in black, the damp chills seeping into her bones, but the cold within her heart was far more profound. Her father, gone. The earth swallowed him whole, and with him, a part of her soul was this Heiau. Could this void truly be permanent? The scent of lilies, usually a comfort, now felt suffocating, a floral shroud over her shattered world. Faces blurred around her, pitying glances, empty none of them truly understood the gaping chasm inside her. Then a shadow detached itself from the throng, her stepmother, Elaine, a vision in tailored black, her eyes dry, too composed. She leaned in, her voice a serpent's hiss against Emily's ear, barely audible above the relentless drizzle. "He never loved you, Emily, not really. He left everything to me, didn't you know?" The words, cold and sharp as shards of ice, pierced through Emily's grief-stricken haze. A claim? A lie? Or a truth designed to dismantle her reality? Piece by agonizing piece. What kind of monster would utter such cruelty at a graveside? The ground beneath Emily's feet suddenly felt less like solid earth and more like quicksand. The funeral wasn't an end. It was a beginning. The beginning of a war she hadn't known she was fighting. The funeral had ended, but the silence that followed was far more deafening than any eulogy. Emily moved through the blur of departing mourners, a ghost in her own life, feeling the phantom ache of a limb she no longer possessed. Elaine's words, a poisoned dart, had found their mark, festering amidst her grief. Her father, gone. And now, the very ground she stood on felt like shifting sand. She stumbled, not physically, but spiritually, trying to grasp the new, terrifying reality. Her father, the meticulous man, never once mentioned updating his will. Never. The world outside the funeral home had turned a colder shade of gray, mirroring the landscape of Emily's soul. Elaine's words echoed, a toxic lullaby, painting her father not as the loving man she knew, but as a deceiver. "He never loved you, Emily." The poison seeped into every memory, every cherished moment, twisting them into something grotesque. Could her father, the rock of her life, have built his affection on such fragile ground? This question gnawed at her, more relentless than the grief itself. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a mausoleum, each shadow stretching long and menacing, whispering doubts. She wandered through the silent rooms, her hand tracing the familiar grain of wood on her father's study door, a sanctuary he had always guarded. It was the one place he had truly called his own, a space of quiet contemplation and meticulous order. He had spent countless hours there, surrounded by books and the faint scent of old paper and pipe tobacco. Emily had always felt a sense of calm in its presence, but now a subtle unease began to prickle at her skin. What secrets might these walls hold, beyond the well-worn leather-bound volumes and the neatly stacked paper? Her father, a man of routine, had left behind a void that no amount of tidiness could fill, a gaping chasm where his presence used to be. The thought of Elaine, now ostensibly in charge, made Emily's stomach churn. She envisioned the stepmother, with her sharp eyes and even sharper tongue, already planning her takeover, her greed a palpable force. Emily had seen the avarice flicker in Elaine's gaze, even before the funeral, a predatory glint that had always made her feel uncomfortable. But this overt claim, this brazen assertion of absolute control over her father's legacy, felt like a betrayal on an entirely new scale. Her father, a man who had planned every detail of his life with such precision, couldn't possibly have overlooked something as crucial as his will. Or could he? The question felt like treason against his memory, yet it persisted. The house felt heavier, the silence amplifying the insidious whispers of suspicion. Emily decided she couldn't simply let Elaine's words stand unchallenged. She needed to find answers, not just for herself, but for her father's honor. She had to believe in the man she knew, not the heartless stranger Elaine was trying to paint. The study called to her, an insistent pull. It was the logical place to start, a fortress of her father's memories, his work, his very essence. Perhaps, amidst the carefully organized chaos of his genius, a truth lay hidden, a counter-narrative to Elaine's venom. She pushed open the heavy oak door, the familiar scent a bittersweet comfort. Everything was as he left it, or so it seemed. The antique desk, a family heirloom, stood sentinel in the center of the room, its surface gleaming faintly in the dim light. Emily ran her fingers over the smooth, cool wood, a silent plea for guidance. Her eyes scanned the familiar landscape of his workspace, the stack of literary journals, the old brass lamp, the leather block. Nothing seemed out of place, no obvious sign of a struggle or a frantic search. Yet the air felt charged, expectant. She began to systematically go through each drawer, a methodical process her father himself would have approved of. Tax documents, old correspondence, even a few childhood drawings she'd given him, all neatly filed, impeccably categorized. It was a testament to his obsessive organization, a trait she had once found endearing, now frustratingly opaque. He'd left no stone unturned in life, so why would his death be any different? Then, tucked away in the very back of the lowest drawer, beneath a pile of old bank statements and a forgotten set of keys to an antique chest they no longer owned, her fingers brushed against something unfamiliar. It was a small, ornate wooden box, no larger than her palm, intricately carved with a pattern of twisting vines. She'd never seen it before. A shiver ran down her spine, a strange mix of apprehension and burgeoning hope. This was not something her father would simply forget. The box was surprisingly heavy for its size, made of a dark, dense wood. There was no lock, but the lid was snug, requiring a firm pressure to open. As it finally yielded, a faint click echoed in the quiet room. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a single, tarnished silver locket and a tightly folded, yellowed piece of paper. The locket was old, intricately designed, not her mother's, nor anything Emily recognized. It felt ancient, heavy with unspoken stories. But it was the paper that drew her gaze, its edges brittle with age. Her father's distinct, elegant handwriting filled the page. But it wasn't a will, nor a simple note. It was a poem, short and enigmatic, titled The Serpent's Coil. When shadows lengthen and trust turns to dust, seek the hidden heart, where true love is just. The serpent's coil, a silvered gleam, guards secrets deep, beyond the dream. Emily reread the lines, her brow furrowed in concentration. The words resonated with an unnerving precision, a direct echo of Elaine's venomous accusations. The serpent's coil, a chilling premonition, or a direct response to a threat her father had already perceived. The silver locket, tarnished and old, suddenly felt less like a relic and more like a key. Her father, ever the strategist, had always spoken in metaphors when he wanted to hide truths in plain sight, a playful habit that now seemed deeply significant. He hadn't just left behind a clue, he had left a puzzle, designed to test her to confirm her loyalty and to expose Elaine's deceit. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. Her father hadn't been oblivious to Elaine's nature. He had known, he had prepared. But for what exactly? And what did the hidden heart refer to? The poem, cryptic as it was, ignited a spark of determination within Emily, fanning the dying embers of her grief into a fierce flame of purpose. This wasn't just about money or inheritance anymore. This was about vindicating her father's memory, about proving that his love for her was real, not a convenient fiction. Elaine's victory, if it was one, would be sure. The silver locket, warm in her palm, pulsed with the quiet energy of a secret waiting to be unearthed. Her father, in his meticulous foresight, had laid a trap for the unsuspecting, a final act of love and protection. The game was on. Emily traced the intricate engravings on the locket, its silver cool against her skin, yet holding a phantom warmth from her father's touch. The hidden heart in his cryptic poem nagged at her, a riddle wrapped in a memory. It wasn't just a sentimental piece. It was a key. But to what lock? She remembered her father's study, a sanctum of leather-bound books and peculiar artifacts. A place Elaine had always avoided, citing dusty allergies. Perhaps the answer lay there, hidden in plain sight amidst his beloved collection, a final, cunning message awaiting discovery. The dust motes danced in the afternoon light, undisturbed by Elaine's infrequent visits, suggesting its untouched nature. The study door, usually ajar, was now firmly shut, a trivial detail that prickled Emily's senses. Elaine had clearly been through it. But what was she searching for? Emily pushed the heavy oak door open, the familiar scent of old paper and pipe tobacco enveloping her. She scanned the shelves, running her fingers over spines, searching for anything out of place. A loose floorboard? A false back in a drawer? Nothing seemed amiss. Only the meticulous order her father had always maintained. Yet, she felt a distinct chill, a feeling that Elaine's hurried search had overlooked something small, something profound. The hidden heart. Was it a literal heart or something metaphorical? Emily's gaze fell upon her father's antique globe, its brass meridian gleaming, a gift from her late mother. Then, her eyes drifted to a specific shelf, the one dedicated to romantic poetry, a genre her father rarely touched, except for one particular volume, Sonnets from the Portuguese by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, a book of her mother's. It was slightly askew, almost imperceptibly, as if someone had hastily returned it. This deviation from his usual precision, a detail too subtle for Elaine's blunt methods, struck her as significant. This wasn't a random collection. It was a love story. Emily pulled the poetry book from the shelf. It was heavier than it should be. A careful inspection of the spine revealed a cleverly concealed compartment, a mechanism her father, a hobbyist of intricate puzzles, must have crafted himself. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Inside, nestled on a velvet lining, wasn't a document, but a faded photograph. It showed her father and mother, young and vibrant, standing beside a blooming rose garden, a place Emily barely remembered from her early childhood. But what truly caught her eye was a small, almost imperceptible inscription on the back. The inscription, written in her father's distinctive, elegant script, read, "Our secret garden, the truest heart lies where the roses bloom eternally. Emily, my love, remember the stone bench?" The hidden heart wasn't an object, but a location, a place of love, memory, and perhaps a hidden truth. The rose garden, now overgrown and neglected since her mother's passing, was tucked away behind the forgotten greenhouse, a place Elaine never ventured. It was too wild, too full of thorny memories for her polished sensibilities. Emily felt a surge of hope, intertwined with a chilling premonition. The path to the rose garden was indeed reclaimed by nature, nettles and brambles grasping at Emily's clothes as she pushed through. She felt like an archaeologist uncovering a lost civilization, each step deepening her connection to her past. She remembered childhood games, the scent of damp earth and petals. The air grew heavy, thick with the weight of expectation. She reached the clearing, finding the stone bench, weathered and moss-covered, exactly as her father's inscription promised. But as she approached, her eyes caught a fresh, disturbing detail. The earth around the bench had been recently disturbed. Someone had been here, digging, not skillfully, but frantically. Elaine's signature impatience, Emily thought with a grim smile. They had been looking for something. But had they found it? Emily knelt, running her hands over the upturned soil. Her father's clues were never obvious. He'd never bury something directly in the ground. Her gaze fixed on the stone bench itself, its solid frame. She ran her fingers along its base, feeling for an imperfection, a seam. There it was, a tiny, almost invisible crack near the base of one leg. With a surge of adrenaline, she pressed. With a soft click, a small, cleverly concealed panel slid open from the side of the stone bench. It wasn't large, just big enough for a small, watertight container. Inside, resting on a bed of dry leaves, was not a rolled parchment, but a sleek, modern USB drive and a single, sealed envelope. The contrast between the ancient bench and the high-tech storage device was jarring, a testament to her father's foresight. This was clearly more than just a will. It was his secret weapon. But who was this weapon aimed at? Beyond Elaine, Emily's fingers trembled as she tore open the envelope. Inside, a single sheet of paper, a notarized document, not a will, but a signed declaration. It detailed a complex web of shell corporations and offshore accounts, meticulously tracing their ownership. And at the bottom, not Elaine's name, but that of Mr. Davies, her father's seemingly trustworthy legal advisor, the very man who handled his estate. The declaration explicitly stated that Davies had been systematically siphoning funds with Elaine as a knowing beneficiary for years. This was far more sinister than she had imagined. The USB drive, then, held the irrefutable evidence. Emily hurried back to the house, her mind reeling, the world around her a blur. She found her father's old laptop tucked away in a dusty drawer, the one Elaine had dismissed as obsolete. Plugging in the drive, a single file appeared. For Emily, my truest heart. It was a video. Her father, looking frail but determined, stared out from the screen. "My dearest Emily," he began, his voice raspy. "If you're watching this, then my suspicions were correct. And you found my final gift." A lump formed in Emily's throat. "Elaine, her father continued, his eyes hardening, is not who she pretends to be. She and Davies have been conspiring for years. My illness was sudden, yes, but it allowed me to observe their machinations from a unique vantage point. I knew I wouldn't have long, but I couldn't let them take everything, especially from you. This is my secret weapon, my truest form of protection. He paused, a flicker of pain crossing his face. The will they presented, a cleverly doctored forgery. The real one is secured elsewhere. Emily gasped, the audacity of the deception chilling her to the bone. The real will, her father explained, is safely lodged with Mr. Henderson, my oldest friend and the only lawyer I truly trust. He has been waiting for you, instructed to act only upon receipt of this video and the declaration you've found. He also has the full, unredacted accounting of all their fraudulent transactions ready to be submitted to the authorities. A wave of relief, potent and overwhelming, washed over Emily. Her father had not only protected her, but had also orchestrated their downfall with meticulous precision. He wasn't just a strategist. He was a silent guardian. Elaine and Davies believed they had won. Her father's image on the screen softened slightly, but they fell into a double trap. While they focused on the false will and my supposed senility, I was gathering everything. The hidden will is ironclad, and the evidence against them is undeniable. Their greed blinded them to the truth. I would never leave you unprotected. You, my hidden heart, were always my greatest treasure, my legacy. His smile was bittersweet. Now, go, my love. Make them face justice. The game, my dear, is finally over, and you hold all the winning cards. The polished mahogany table in the private chambers of justice all bright reflected the nervous energy of the room. Elaine and Davies sat across from Emily and Mr. Henderson, their faces a mask of practiced indifference, a subtle arrogance beneath their composed exteriors. They believed this was a mere formality, a rubber stamp on their ill-gotten gains. Emily, however, noted the slight tremor in Elaine's left hand as she clutched a legal document, a detail that spoke volumes about her hidden anxiety. The will they had submitted, a flimsy document compared to the one Emily held, was already proving to be their first mistake, riddled with anachronisms that only a true expert would catch. A silent trap laid by her meticulous father. This subtle flaw hinted at deeper deceptions. Mr. Henderson, a man whose silver hair and kindly demeanor belied a razor-sharp legal mind, began to speak, his voice calm but firm. He laid out the preliminary arguments, allowing Elaine's lawyer, a slick-haired individual named Sterling, to present their supposed case first. Sterling, with an almost theatrical flourish, detailed the provisions of the will found by Elaine, emphasizing her devoted care for the deceased. He painted Emily as an estranged, ungrateful daughter, a narrative carefully crafted over years. Davies nodded along, his eyes occasionally darting to Emily, a flicker of smugness undeniable. But Emily saw Sterling stumble slightly over a date, a tiny, almost imperceptible hesitation, and a new suspicion bloomed. Had Sterling himself been misled about the document's true origins? When it was their turn, Mr. Henderson did not immediately attack. Instead, he requested a detailed forensic examination of the found will, citing unusual discrepancies in its paper and ink composition. Elaine's face, for the first time, tightened visibly, a tremor running through her carefully constructed facade. Davies leaned in, whispering urgently in her ear, his previous confidence evaporating like morning mist. Justice Albright, a stern woman known for her keen eye for detail, peered over her half-moon spectacles, her gaze settling on the stepmother with an unnerving intensity. This unexpected move by Henderson had clearly caught them off guard, a tactical blow to their meticulously planned performance. The request for a forensic check wasn't just a challenge. It was an accusation, implying the document's very authenticity was in question. Sterling, scrambling, objected vehemently, calling it a baseless smear, an attempt to delay and but Justice Albright, ever the pragmatist, granted the request, setting a swift timeline. The integrity of testamentary documents is paramount, she stated, her voice brooking no argument. As the preliminary hearing adjourned, Emily caught a glimpse of Sterling cornering Elaine, his face a mix of frustration and dawning realization. It was clear he was starting to question his own clients, sensing a deeper rot beneath their polished veneer. Her father's foresight was astounding. He knew exactly the kind of lawyer Elaine would hire and how to plant the seeds of doubt, ensuring even their own counsel would eventually turn. The next session was less formal, a deposition where the witnesses to Elaine's will were brought forward. The first, a former housekeeper, spoke haltingly, her eyes avoiding Emily's. She recounted signing the document, but her voice lacked conviction. Mr. Henderson, with a gentle firmness, asked her about the exact circumstances, the date, the presence of Emily's father. Her answers became increasingly vague, contradictory even. Then, Mr. Henderson produced a photograph, a time-stamped image of the housekeeper on vacation in another country, on the very day she supposedly witnessed the will. The color drained from the woman's face. The revelation was stark. She had lied under oath, coerced perhaps, or paid, but indisputably The housekeeper burst into tears, confessing she had been paid a substantial sum by Davies, not Elaine, to sign a backdated document. She had never even seen Emily's father during that period. This direct connection to Davies, bypassing Elaine, added a fresh layer of intrigue. Justice Albright's expression darkened. The web of deceit was beginning to unravel, piece by piece, not just through legal maneuvers, but through the forced confession of a peripheral player. Davies, until now merely uncomfortable, now looked genuinely panicked, sweat beading on his forehead. This betrayal by his own pawn was a significant blow, making it clear his involvement ran deeper than simply benefiting from his mother's scheme. Elaine, surprisingly, remained stoic, perhaps calculating her next move. Or perhaps her years of duplicity had simply made her a master of composure under duress. But the damage was done. Mr. Henderson then shifted gears, presenting the initial findings of the forensic report. The paper of Elaine's will was consistent with a batch manufactured 2 years after the supposed signing date, and the ink used was a modern archival blend not commercially available at the time of the alleged execution. The evidence was irrefutable. Scientific proof that the document was a forgery, dated artificially to suit their narrative. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a deliberate, sophisticated fraud. A collective gasp rippled through the small group of observers allowed into the chambers. Justice Albright's gaze fixed on Elaine, now stripped of her veneer of innocence. "Mrs. Davies," she began, her voice cold as ice. "Do you have anything to say regarding these findings?" Elaine's lips moved, but no sound emerged. It was then that Mr. Henderson, with a deliberate solemnity, produced a sealed envelope. "Your Honor," he announced, "we possess the true last will and testament of Mr. Alistair Thorne, executed 5 years ago, witnessed by unimpeachable parties, and securely held in my office as per his explicit instructions." The real will's existence was now undeniable. He handed it to the justice, along with a small, encrypted USB drive. And furthermore, Henderson continued, Mr. Thorne anticipated such an attempt at fraud. He recorded a final declaration to be viewed only upon the presentation of the fraudulent will. The room fell silent as Justice Albright inserted the drive into a monitor. Emily's father appeared on screen, his image clear and resolute. He spoke directly, detailing his love for Emily, his awareness of Elaine and Davies' greed, and his meticulous plan to expose them. He even mentioned a specific coded message hidden in plain sight within the fraudulent will itself that only Emily and his trusted lawyer would recognize as a signal of its falsity. The video continued, with Alistair calmly explaining how he had allowed Elaine and Davies to believe they were siphoning off funds, meticulously documenting every single fraudulent transaction. Mr. Henderson also holds the full, unredacted accounting of all their financial misdeeds. Alistair's voice resonated through the room, including the offshore accounts they believed were untraceable, and the shell corporations used to launder money intended for my charity foundations. The scale of their theft, far beyond simple inheritance, was laid bare. Emily watched Elaine and Davies' faces contort, their earlier arrogance replaced by pure terror as the depth of Alistair's preparation, the sheer magnitude of his trap, became terrifyingly clear. This wasn't just about inheritance. It was about criminal enterprise. The judge's gavel struck, a sharp, decisive sound. Given the irrefutable evidence of forgery, perjury, and extensive financial fraud, Justice Albright declared, her voice devoid of emotion, "I hereby declare the document presented by Mrs. Elaine Davies to be null and void. The true will of Alistair Thorne, presented by Mr. Henderson, stands as valid." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the disgraced stepmother and stepson. "Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for immediate criminal investigation into fraud, perjury, and embezzlement." Elaine gasped, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Davies slumped in his chair, defeated. Emily, watching them, felt a profound sense of justice, a quiet triumph that settled deep in her bones. Her father's legacy, and her own, was finally, irrevocably reclaimed. The game, as her father had said, was truly over. The aftermath of the trial was swift and unforgiving for Elaine and Davies. The district attorney's office, armed with Henderson's irrefutable evidence, pursued charges of fraud, perjury, and embezzlement with relentless efficiency. Their carefully constructed facade of respectability crumbled, replaced by headlines detailing their avarice and deceit. Asset freezes, lengthy investigations, and inevitable convictions followed, consigning them to the obscurity and disgrace they had so desperately tried to avoid. Emily felt no triumph, only a quiet, weary satisfaction that justice, however belated, had been served. Her own journey of healing began with the methodical dismantling and rebuilding of the Thorn Charity Foundations. It was painstaking work, uncovering layers of financial malfeasance. But with each cleansed ledger and revitalized program, a piece of her own spirit seemed to mend. She immersed herself in her father's vision, not just as an heir, but as a guardian of his true legacy. The empty grand house transformed into a hub of philanthropic activity, a vibrant testament to Alistair's benevolent intentions before they were corrupted. Emily learned to lead, to inspire, and to connect, discovering a strength she never knew she possessed, forged in the crucible of betrayal and resilience. One quiet afternoon, sifting through an old box of her father's personal effects, she found a worn, leather-bound diary tucked beneath a stack of faded photographs. It was not filled with business strategies or legal notes, but rather with Alistair's private musings, his regrets, his boundless love for her, and a single, poignant dream he had never realized: to establish a scholarship for underprivileged aspiring musicians, a hidden passion from his youth. This wasn't a hidden will or another trap, but a window into the soul of the man she had loved and lost, revealing a tender vulnerability beneath his formidable exterior. In that moment, Emily understood the true meaning of their game. It wasn't merely about wealth or vengeance, but about uncovering truth, honoring memory, and ultimately, finding her own purpose. She established the Alistair Thorne Legacy of Harmony Scholarship, ensuring that young, talented musicians would have the chance her father had always wished for himself. Years passed. The foundations flourished, Emily at their helm, a quiet force of change. She had not just reclaimed her inheritance, she had transformed it, turning personal tragedy into a lasting beacon of hope and artistic expression. Her father's memory lived not in the static pronouncements of a will, but in the vibrant melodies echoing through concert halls and practice rooms, a symphony of resilience and enduring love. And in the quiet echo of the music, Emily finally understood the true symphony of her father's love and her own enduring strength. Thank you for watching this story unfold. If you enjoyed Emily's journey, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments below.